Copy
17.
17.
17, both bail conditions are standard 3 and not to drive unless lawfully licensed to do so.
10-4, thank you.
County Space 8. County Sabatis 8, Sabatis 19. County Sabatis 8 or Sabatis 19. Sabatis 19 have attached you for 13 Aspen Drive. It's for Christopher Watson. Just letting you know that he does not need anything specific, just making bizarre statements as usual. Declined any type of medical services.
In custody, we checked in with one of our former FBI investigators, Bill Daly. Here's my conversation with him from earlier today. I'm joined by Bill Daly. He's a former investigator with the FBI. Bill, thank you for joining us. As we record this, state police in Maine, law enforcement in Maine have said that they have rescinded some of those lockdown measures that they've been recommending in that immediate area where the mass shooting happened. What do you make of something like that happening this evening?
Well, I think it also kind of builds on some statements earlier. There was a press conference earlier today where they were talking about focusing on certain areas, and whether it's putting dive teams into a river nearby, whether it's launching field expeditions up into the hills and different parts of the surrounding community, not too far away from where he lives or lived.
County 19,
where
you
the
still
incidents took place. So I think this is a further suggestion that they have a better sense through a number of different factors that he would, if he is alive, he would be in and around this area and perhaps has not traveled as far as people might want to think he's traveled.
Back 4 County, both units will be 10-8. Disorderly conduct warning given. I'll update the narrative.
Maybe a further suggestion that they feel more comfortable with the fact that he's within this particular general area.
Another piece of evidence that was found today, well, they did find the car and they released that they had found a cell phone related to the suspect here. What can they get from that?
Central to Unit 2, you are going to be clear to enter. They will be in the back.
And I think I'd like to kind of default to some of my earlier training, which is helping to put the person into focus by kind of gathering a number of bits and pieces of some data points. Those data points could consist of, interviews with family members and friends as to his demeanor, his personality, what he did on the weekends. Did he have any, favorite fishing spots?
Unit 10 going to have another call for you, Lewiston.
In addition to that, what the FBI can bring to bear is doing forensic analysis, both on the phones that he has. The FBI has their cast.
10-4-17, I have Maine Ag 310 Adam Nora Union coming back on a purple
Code 1 to Meadowview Apartment 23 Spofford Street, Lewiston. Going to Apartment 354 for an 91-year-old female with high blood sugar. It's a 13 Alpha 1.
232 Bryant Pond, Maine.
10-4, that vehicle picked up this subject. You show me the names.
10-4.
19 County, I'll be 10-8, I've updated in there.
10-4, 19.
The love, and obviously this is not the first mass shooting, and it likely won't be the last, and so we as a nation need to join together and support each other.
The vigils, are they going to have some this
weekend?
I
imagine so. I haven't heard anything about it, but now that the shelter-in-place order is done, that's typically what we see. People, and especially now that all 18 victims their names have been released, now is the time.
Copy, 2.
Time when people usually go and lift up each other and put a vigil of some sort, candles, flowers. There's a teenager that was killed as part of this mass shooting, and so there's a lot of people that are paying attention. So we expect some sort of vigil, I'm sure.
News Nation going to be out here for days?
News Nation's going to be here for as long as it takes. I'm heading to Austin, Texas next, though, to cover the Caitlin Armstrong trial.
I was supposed to go there, too.
So that's where you'll see me, but News Nation will be out there, and we'll be covering it every step of the way.
Yeah, I planned on Caitlin also, and I redivert.
I know. It's tough. There's a lot of news out there.
A lot of news.
All right. Well,
Thank
if you want to watch me right now, tune into News Nation. We're going to go live with Chris Cuomo coming up here in about 7 minutes.
And Alex brings great work, and he's always around and very professional.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you for your time. It's Alex. Be like Alex. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So scene out here.
Cancel by PD. Copy 2. I'm gonna have another one for you. If you're clear, going to 26 Nichols Street. Patient will be outside. It's a 43-year-old female with high blood sugar. It's an alpha level. 10-4, we're familiar. En route.
Has a weapon on him. He has his weapon out.
County 8.
8, good.
Suspicious person call for Federal Road in Livermore by Long Pond boat launch. White male wearing a light blue shirt, dark navy blue pants, beard, short dark hair, walking down the road. Last saw about 10 minutes ago, headed south.
10-4.
So will they find him? Or will they find him tonight?
County, if you're trying to call, I'll give you a call right back.
10-4-18.
I'll wait for them to do their report and then we'll talk. The shelter in place has been lifted, folks. The shelter in place has been lifted. So.
Show starts with the launch. So I got you. Yeah, I got you. I can.
The all fire department, stand by for the evening tone test.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
County 17.
17.
Attaching you to a suspicious person complaint. It's going to be for the area of Route 202 in Green, outbound from Lewiston, last seen near the LA Harley. LACOM took the report. It's a male on a bicycle wearing a white shirt and a camouflage bag. He's on a bicycle and was deemed suspicious. Unknown why he was suspicious.
Noted.
To all fire departments, that concludes the evening tone test. Clear at 20:01 hours.
Yeah, we're out here. We'll wait and see what happens out here, folks. I'm just spinning some more, so I'm not sure. Alright guys, I'm going to show you way in the distance because I see a bunch of lights. I see a bunch of, in the distance, you can see flashes of lights. Let me see. know that's Alex. He's ready to go in with Chris Cuomo. Just waiting to see what happens here, folks. Come on in. They're definitely out there. They're definitely out there in the trees. I can see lights in the trees. That's a hilly over there. They're definitely out there looking for this guy. They're out there in the dark looking for him. I can see it in the distance. A large group of people with lights. Are out there. And then tomorrow I'll be back out if they don't catch him tonight. He could be caught tonight. The whole situation is just fluid. A lot of unknowns. It's a mystery. JLR investigates out here at the scene. Look at this, guys. Let me show you something.
Good question. I think that we're just waiting for law enforcement to tell us something, whether or not they're actually making progress out here. I mean, the fact they're going to devote more resources here tomorrow must mean that they don't we saw a massive operation here earlier today that carried
Unit 2 to Central will be transporting to CMMC.
Divers that are going in the water. They're taking
Copy 2, thank you.
Trying to provide aerial support and allow these divers to be as efficient as possible. In fact, we just watched the final drone just descend about 15 minutes ago. So there is still law enforcement here behind me. This is that boat launch where that car was found, and that's the reason why they're starting here. It is a very business effort for the most part. They've kept us far away. But at the same time, of course, we need to make sure everyone knows that it's not just happening right here. Those boots on the ground manhunt is still going on all across this county. We heard about several search warrant executions that happened in townships beyond Lewiston. So there is still hundreds of law enforcement personnel that are actually going out here, making sure that they're doing whatever they can to either find the suspect himself or find his body. Yeah, yeah. Well, look, there's two trains of thought here. For the boots on the ground manhunt, where they're actually combing through the woods, that is a search for someone who's alive and who is armed and dangerous, as they've continued to tell us. Yes, the shelter in place has stopped, but they're still going, combing through this miles and miles, stretches of forest that really are hard to cover, but they're still doing that. But it's important for me to note that this water search is looking for a dead body, and I know that because of how this river system works, right? Because this boat launch this river does lead eventually to the Atlantic Ocean. However, there are massive dams that stand in the way. 100-foot dams, one's in Lisbon Falls, and so my point being that all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, and I can tell you that that's actually physically impossible. You can't take any sort of water down the river all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So yes,
Unit 2 to CMMC.
Meanwhile, the search will happen on land, and that is for someone that they believe is still out.
Copy 2, thank you.
No, I will, Chris. Thanks.
So out there you saw flashlights in the woods. They were in the woods. This is water right here. They were in the woods. I saw numerous flashlights in the distance. On to the right, this is Frost Hill Road. Authorities have Frost Hill Road blocked off. They've been having this road in this area blocked off since this incident happened. And when they found this Subaru right there behind where this law enforcement vehicle is, right there is a boat launch, little parking area, and that's where his Subaru was found. Now law enforcement are searching the water, and they're also searching the land. They're searching the land area. And as you saw, a big media truck. There was lots of media around here. They just did a News Nation report. The medias are at different locations. One at the bar. Some are at the bowling alley. Some are in Lewiston. Some are probably be back tomorrow. We don't know. The press conference will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. Definitely going to watch that. And share this video out. I am JLR Investigates. We go boots on the ground. We're just going to watch this process play out. What will happen? Will they take this guy alive? Will we hear gunshots? Will they find a body? Will this guy pop up and show up somewhere else and do more? It remains to be seen. They have their eyes focused on this area. He could come out at any time, folks. He could be out there. This is his last known, assuming that the car that, the Subaru he drove, it probably most likely, right? But you never know. Come on in and share this video out there too. Show everyone what's going on in real time. It's good to let the community of Lewiston and Lisbon, Lisbon, Lisbon. If I'm not pronouncing some of these cities in the area right. Bowdoin. Portland, that's farther to the south. Brunswick, that's a little bit farther away. It's centered around this particular location. And, it's good for the locals to know that might be sheltering in place still, even though it got lifted, that authorities are out here. Bowdoin. Thank you, JJ. Bowdoin, Casey, thank you.
Hey, go ahead.
A lot of people Federal Road from the Turner line to the bridge of the falls, native contact. They're looking for a body. I'm 50-50. My personal
10-4,
opinion.
thank you.
I'm fine with that. If they want to do Nats first, I can do Nats first.
Well, I'm 50-50 on this situation. What do you think? What's your thoughts?
Hey, County.
Hey, go ahead.
I've checked Federal Road from the Turner line to the bridge in the falls, negative contact.
On the clock.
You can close it over 10-8.
10-4, thank you.
Now, Lewiston was a ghost town tonight. I actually made a video a little after 6 p.m. when it was dark. Starting to get dark. And Most of the businesses were closed. Pizza spots, Italian restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, you name it.
I'm good to do Nats first. Or end up on the phone. The ram first.
Made a video after a little after 6. Sun went down here at 5:37. But I think starting tomorrow, the community will start coming out. I really do think they'll start venturing out a little bit. Will they have school? Halloween. Halloween's coming up. I just want to spin the camera over here to kind of show you the law enforcement over here that are in the trees. And if you could see in the distance, you can see these. You can see flashes in the trees. You see light. See that?
Okay. This might take a couple of takes.
See how they're looking around in the trees?
Dive teams and search are focusing their efforts on the area of Robert Card's last known whereabouts. We're about a 25-minute drive outside of Lewiston, and just behind me is the boat ramp where the vehicle...
17 County.
17, go ahead.
I checked all the way to Sullivan Road, negative contact, you can close it out.
10-4-17.
Dive teams and search crews are focusing their efforts on the area of Robert Card's last known whereabouts. We're about
17 County.
17, go ahead.
I checked all the way to Sullivan Road, negative contact, you can close it out.
10-4-17.
Police found the vehicle that was abandoned by Card in the hours after the shooting rampage. Now, Card is still considered
See how many people are out there right now?
as this search continues. However, authorities have decided to lift the shelter-in-place orders. Businesses can reopen. People can gather publicly again. We're expecting to start to see more public grieving.
Lewiston engine 3, 24 Stall Street, 24 Stall Street, blood transfusion. Unit in the area.
Yeah, there's
70 County, I have somebody behind me flashing the lights pulling over. 202 in Daggett Hill Road.
flashlights that I've seen up in there.
10-4-17.
Oh, they're
Call center, 3 responder.
that's law enforcement.
Engine 031 responding 24 Stall Street, 24 Stall Street, for a phone transformer in the area.
Probably see it.
17, all I caught was 220.
They might have went around that bend. They were definitely out there, folks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
70 County, I have somebody behind me flashing the lights pulling over. 202 in Daggett Hill Road. 70 County, apparently it's the caller for this suspicious bicycle. Said he went off the road and ran into the woods around Merrill Road.
10-4. 17, all I caught was 220.
Definitely action going on out here, folks. Definitely action.
County, apparently it's the caller for this suspicious bicycle. Said he went off the road and ran into the woods around Merrill Road.
10-4.
Chris. Yeah, yeah. When possible. Thank you, sir. And then just leave the light by. Thank you. Very good.
With boots on the ground, JLR investigates. Come on in, everyone. This is outside Lewiston, Maine, Forest Hill Road. Heavy police presence. Still looking for
Rescue 3 engine to Firehouse Grill. Going to be outside 47 Broad Street. You have a 6-year-old male testing. Hello.
Robert Card.
Well, police found a note. They won't confirm what it said, but U.S. news outlets are reporting that it was written in a way that suggested Card was not expecting to be alive when it was read. Right near that note, authorities also found a cell phone, which of course makes it harder for authorities to try to track him down. At daylight, we are expecting search crews to return here. We're standing not far from that boat ramp and the river. The last thing whereabouts remains a key focus of this investigation.
I got here probably earlier, late morning. I got this and then just started live streaming. And the location was here. Lots of police presence earlier. I'm gonna throw out some videos tonight. Later on.
Flight 2, stand by for your evening tones.
Let me spin this around. This is law enforcement. Law enforcement.
3 Firehouse Grill, 47 Broad, 6-year-old male test.
They turn the light out.
Flight 2, those are your evening tones. Time of tones 2032. Split and crew copies.
I don't know, like law enforcement, look, there's vehicles now moving over there. I don't know what's going on.
Did you go down to the house?
It looks like a bunch of them got in their cars. Where are they going? Okay, so they're going somewhere. Look at this, they're going somewhere, folks. Okay, a bunch of them just got in their cars and they're going up the road. I just saw heard like a four-wheeler start over here. Yeah, they got a four-wheeler. Hear it? That's a four-wheeler. Here it comes. They got four-wheelers. They're going up the road. What's going on here?
Go ahead.
They're all shooting up into one area.
They're looking at their call notes. One call is only the other one's
they're all zooming out.
619 West, sir. Correct.
They're all going up that hill.
That is correct. And 693 Webster's right down the street from Forest Hill Street and Tourmaline Drive is through the woods.
Now they're all going up the hill.
Okay, I'm just wondering what made him think it was Forest Hill. We're in the area, there's random lights on and off, but we don't see anything obvious. Let's drive around for a
What do
minute.
you think?
I copy.
I don't know, that was
You're in
a
the
really
area.
quick move they just did.
Is suspicious.
It was a
I gotta
quick.
do radio warning.
And look, the officer's just standing out there with his gun. Scanner said suspicious person. Yeah, something. I don't know what's going down. There could be some activity. They all were out in the woods with their lights, and then they all got in their vehicles. Two people got into ATV type vehicles, and then they went up the hill. Around the corner, can't see. So this is Forest Hill Road. So let me get the map here, and maybe I have an idea where they could have went. The Forest Hill Road from this road here, Lisbon Street. Forest Hill Road circles around Forest Hill Avenue, I'm sorry, and then it goes up to Golden Road and Holy Trinity Parish. So I don't know. Something going on up there.
Come around the back of the
Anything on the scanner?
Anything going on that we need to...
I have no idea.
No idea? Okay.
I'm here to make sure the road's closed and make sure nobody gets run over.
Thank you so much.
Okay, he's standing there. He's standing there a little bit more. I don't know. Something going on. Williams Road and Chelsea.
Yeah. Bridges. Chris Bridges. Yeah.
17 County.
Go ahead, 17.
I checked the area, Merrill Road. I can't even find a bike on the side of the road.
Scanner said a male in camo with a backpack seen walking down the road. Possible it's a suspect.
10-4.
I don't know. Chopper in the air at Brunswick Road and Fire Road 103. in Ring Hill area off of 201. There's no choppers around here. So let me give you some tidbits of new information also, saying that since he and his father share the same name, he's actually referred to by relatives and close friends as Robbie.
Go ahead, 17.
Robbie Card.
I checked the area in Merrill Road. I can't even
He
find
has
the
an
bike on
older
the side
brother
of the road.
named Ryan Card.
Just
Oh, what
update
is
the
that?
call.
Is that LE?
10-4.
So he has an older brother named Ryan Card, 41. His younger sister, Nicole Lard, L-A-R-D, 39. She lives in Durham, Maine. And his mother's name is Jana. It's starting to get real dark out here, folks. Heavy police presence. Now, one filming crew out here. So everyone, I'm gonna sign off and get myself some food and monitor the situation. Keep me informed. If he's not found tonight, I will be in the area. You know, I'll see it if it goes down, and if not, we'll be back here at first light tomorrow morning. Back here at first light tomorrow morning. Will they catch this guy tonight? Is he alive? Is he out there? I am JLR Investigates out in the scene. I appreciate all of you. Yes, thank you for the support. I'm going to be here for at least through into early next week, so I'll keep you informed of what's going on, and we'll see the after effect and the aftermath and how the community starts moving forward. We'll see what happens. Vigils, anything, respect for the victims. We'll see what's going on. I'll keep you informed, and I'll be attending the press conference tomorrow. All right, I'm signing off. JLR Investigates. We'll talk soon.
headquarters. Going to high school. Headed to the high school. Again, please. You'll be blocking off the entrance, yes? He wants the entrance to the high school, entrances to the high school, and the sidewalk closed as well. And for 115, you've closed the high school entrance. Where are you going to be? Four.
Same hours.
2-3, sit right. 115 has the entrance to the high school closed off. Are you able to either relieve him and designate him to do the walking path entrances for police take?
Thompson Rescue 3 is off St. Mary's, 1.7.
1.7.
Comms, F Engine 3. Comms, Harry drove to the neighborhood. Your repairs has normal CMP power throughout. Stopped and spoke with 20 for all they have power. They're running on generator to reflector, but they have power than meter. There's no hazard. We're going to be clear return.
Copy, I'll say clear return.
County 8.
There you go.
Suspicious person, 265 Litchfield Road in Wales. Caller states across the street from his house, there is a trailer. Usually when the homeowner is home, they keep the outside light on. It is not on. There's no lights on inside the house. He states he sees someone outside with a flashlight checking the property. When vehicles go by, he turns off the flashlight and then turns it back on.
10-4.
County 8.
There you go.
Suspicious person, 265 Litchfield Road in Wales. Caller states across the street from his house, there is a trailer. Usually when the homeowner is home, they keep the outside light on. It is not on. There's no lights on inside the house. He states he sees someone outside with a flashlight checking the property. When vehicles go by, he turns off the flashlight and then turns it back on.
10-4.
Are you going to coordinate that?
Call for engine 3 force. Mercy 3 in service.
19 County.
Go ahead, 19.
You can show me 10-6 and Lisbon, fill in bit, please.
10-4, I'll show you 10-6.
County.
Go ahead, 19.
You can show me 10-6 and Lisbon, fill in bit, please.
10-4, I'll show you 10-6.
County 17. County 17.
17 County, go ahead.
Attach you to a suspicious condition complaint for the vicinity of 63 Shaw Hill Road. I have a caller there reporting 2 gunshots in succession 3 to 4 minutes ago.
L-E-L-E.
County 17. County 17.
17 County, go ahead.
Attach you to a suspicious condition complaint for the vicinity of 63 Shaw Hill Road. The caller there reporting 2 gunshots in succession 3 to 4 minutes ago.
He was found dead.
I know, we just
Probably somewhere on the, there's somebody was saying in my chat, maybe the old recycling center used to work at. I don't know where that's located relative to here, but they had that road blocked off there and this road going that way towards the river. And they have a 10 p.m. presser.
Yeah.
That's City Hall?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go up there and check out. Right down the road here, folks, there's a recycling center. So people are saying that he was found at the recycling center. I'm going to be leaving here shortly to go to the press conference, folks. It takes about 20 minutes to get there. I am JLR Invest. I am out at the scene.
County 8.
Looks like it was just right down here.
Hey, can I go?
I just wanted to make you aware.
Seeing
Everyone
it in
is tied
real time
up
as far
currently.
as when they
When someone clears, we will have another suspicious condition. In Turner on East Hebron Road, caller states that his dog was barking. He did hear something in the backyard. He's unsure if it was an animal or not.
10-4.
responding. I was
28.
Was driving through, and that's when I seen these.
Hey, can I go?
I just wanted to make you aware. Everyone is tied up currently. Once someone clears, we will have another suspect.
Local police all start positioning.
County tonight.
10-4-5.
County 17.
Condition. In Turner and East Hebron Road.
County go.
These roads here. This
Just had a caller who stated that she heard 7 more gunshots, then 4 more in the vicinity of 760 Pottle Hill Road.
10-4.
They were all zooming in, and then they pulled in. So then I pulled.
He said his dog was barking. He did hear something in the backyard. He's unsure if it was an animal or not.
10-4.
Over down there at the mobile station, was like, what the world is going on here? And they came out with the guns, and I'm like, okay, they got maybe a new perimeter. So we're told that no more threat to the community. The shooter, according to news reports, is deceased. He's deceased. So community can heal, start healing. All right, I'm gonna go to the press conference. Okay, so I'm signing off. Stay tuned. I'll be back in a little bit. JLR investigator.
County tonight.
1045.
County 17.
17 County, go ahead.
Just had a caller who stated that she had, or she heard, 7 more gunshots, then 4 more in the vicinity of 760 Pottle Hill Road.
10-4.
And I'm not surprised if he did that. It would take a while, depending on where he did it. And again, he picks his location. It could have been someplace very difficult to find, and we've seen that in a number of cases where you have mass homicides and there's mental illness or extreme emotional distress involved. They do this, and of course it's a one-way trip. And actually, you and I had talked about that on Wednesday. That there were indications that he was thinking this might be he didn't cover his face, as we recall, in the pictures, and he walked right in front of CCTV. It was very clear. With that, you kind of had the sense that he didn't think he was going to escape this thing, that it was just his final act. And with that, once it's done, it is very common in these situations that turns into a murder-suicide, but in this case, a mass murder-suicide case. And that's probably, I don't know what we're going to find out, but I did hear earlier today they had found a note. And when they find a note, and they said note, not manifesto. Manifesto can indicate something else, but a note indicates that he was sending it, was directed towards somebody or somebody's saying something. And when they find a note, that's usually an indicator that you're probably going to find that they basically took their own life. And I don't know. We'll find out. I mean, there could be other circumstances.
Sure.
We have so little information here. I am kind of speculating that he took his own life because we don't even have that information yet.
Right, we don't have that. We don't have that yet.
But
no.
It seems like a logical inference, but we don't have that information yet.
Sure. So. Okay. I just want to reset here. Hal Kemper is with us. If you're just joining us here, it's almost 6:30 on the West Coast, almost 9:30 there in Lewiston, Maine on this Friday night, and we're getting reports in. Fox has confirmed that the suspect in the mass shooting there in Maine, this rampage that left 18 innocent people shot and killed. Well, the suspect who allegedly carried all of that out, 40-year-old Robert Card, has been found dead. And so, Hal, we have been over some of these scenes in and around Maine
throughout the last 48 hours, and we heard from officials today, they lifted the shelter-in-place orders for several counties just this afternoon, probably about 3 hours ago. Could that have been a sign, maybe, that they had known something then, if it was safe, if the all-clear was given? I mean, have you ever heard of a situation where a shelter-in-place order for about 3 counties in a state was in place for more than 48 hours?
No, it's very rare. I kind of go back to some of the shootings taken with Malvo and Baltimore and D.C. area. If you recall, that was many years ago, where he was basically out there shooting people randomly, and that caused, they didn't lock everything down, but they certainly had some rather draconian instructions for the public, and there was a large degree of panic throughout the greater Washington D.C. metropolitan area. But with that, they were using extreme caution, shelter in place, which is usually something. Rarely for something like this, you more see this for things like a hazardous materials release, or like some sort of fumes or something like that from a industrial facility or something. In this case, shelter in place because somewhere out there is a mass murder, and now. When you hear that they've lifted that shelter in place order that went on for 48 hours, that's a very long time. When you hear that, that indicates that they know they're with a high degree of confidence, I should say, that the threat is no longer active in that area. Now, does that mean that they've taken him into custody? Does it mean that they found him dead? Or does it mean that they found that he's left the area and they have pretty good indications that he's no longer there? Could be any of those things. Although that was kind of coinciding about the same time the story of the note was out there. So certainly there was a lot of speculation this afternoon that we might, that they were probably going to find his remains. And obviously, based on what we just got, that's exactly what happened. So I think they were being very, very cautious in this. But I have to tell you, there was some discussion. How long can you lock down that big of area? And they were kind of hitting the edge of the envelope because people have to go do things. They have to go to stores. They have to go to doctor's offices. They have to do a lot of things. So that shelter in place couldn't stay in place forever.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Hal. Also, I just want to dive into the nature of the operation and the investigation. Hundreds of law enforcement descended on southern Maine to help find Robert Card. I mean, this very time last night, Hal, we were showing a live picture to our viewers. Viewers were very interested in this. Yes, it was very, very dark because it was nighttime there, but SWAT teams were outside of the last known address to Robert Card, and they were shouting orders and commands through a megaphone, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially, come out with your hands up. We know you're in there, Robert. Please come out. So there was never any indication, at least confirmation, that he was actually in there. So was that all just kind of a formality? Were they just acting on a tip, do you think?
A tip or maybe something a little bit more.
Okay.
That property was probably associated with them. One of the things they did in any of these cases, and is when and this is just modern investigative work anymore. We live with our cell phones. And those things are tools. They enable us to do a lot of things, but they also allow law enforcement a variety of ways to track people.
Okay.
Your phone is basically pinging off towers and stuff, and we can zero in on where you are. And there's just a lot of information you can get from that. And of course, with the warrant, you can go in there and you can take a look at what they're looking at on their phone and everything else. So from all of that, looking at his email accounts, his social media feeds, all of these things, you can derive a lot of information that could lead you to various locations, to people, witnesses, all sorts of things. And I think that's kind of what we had there. And that's probably why they were at that property.
Okay.
They had a high degree of confidence.
I thought this was interesting. Fox's own Bill Malugin, according to a senior source at Customs and Border Protection, said elite Border Patrol BORTAC agents were now on the ground in Maine, and they were assisting in the manhunt for Robert Card. They arrived last night, and BORTAC is essentially the special forces of Border Patrol. It does seem like BORTAC is like this magic force that they can do anything. How they were somewhat instrumental in the search for that escaped inmate in Pennsylvania, Danilo Cavalcante. And they were crucial during the Robb Elementary school shooting. They were called up there in Uvalde, Texas, and I believe members from a BORTAC team there in Uvalde finally neutralized Salvador Ramos after 70-plus minutes. So this somewhat special forces of the Border Patrol, they work wonders, it seems.
I'll tell you, there's probably a lot of Army veterans out there or Army saying they're not special forces. But I will say this.
Sure.
They're pretty special, okay? They're like SWAT, but here's the thing is Border Patrol, CBP has a different mission. Border Patrol has a different mission. And they spend a lot of time in the field. And remember, we talked about this, that you have a vet, you have a military member. He's got a lot of field craft, as we call it, a lot of field skills, to evade detection, to move stealthily without in a rural field environment like that. And so it would make sense to reach out, and they're not far from the border. So this unit was up there. They would come down and they would be very comfortable, particularly if they're working the Canadian border, very comfortable in that sort of heavily vegetated terrain, looking for individuals. This is their bread and butter. This is what they do. And I won't get into all the tactical stuff they do, but that's the other side, which is when they do encounter an armed suspect, they definitely have the skills to deal with that, because their encounters many times are with heavily armed smugglers or human traffickers, and those can be some very dicey tactical situations. So they're very well trained. They have a lot of experience, and they're close. This is something you couldn't have pulled off and say Arkansas, because they're not in Arkansas, but Maine, near the border, they're there.
Okay, didn't even make the connection there. Of course, Maine is on the border with Canada. In the meantime, Hal, if you don't mind, if you have the time, I know it's a Friday night, but we would like to keep talking to you and some of our other experts up until the top of the hour. That's when we're told. There's going to be a press conference from officials there in Lewiston at City Hall, probably confirming what we have all been confirming now and talking about for the last 15 minutes, that this suspect, Robert Card, is dead here. So we do have a shot there as this press conference will probably be underway in the next 30 minutes. Before we do just that, Hal, we are confirming as well from the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office, and I'm going to put this up. They say right now that the suspect in Wednesday night's shootings has been located and is deceased. So, Hal, I will be looking out for where they found the suspect's body, how he took it, possibly, he took his own life, possibly police or law enforcement neutralized. We don't know that just yet. We don't want to speculate there. So I want to know how, in what manner did he die, and also where he was found. Those are the questions I think all of us have right now, right?
I think they do. I think we all do. Sure. But the other thing too is he had time to plan. He had time to think about this. Now, more and more has come out about his mental state, his mental illness, and I've heard a lot of speculation. I don't know if it's speculation or they had inside knowledge. They said he was probably hearing voices, and with all of that, he probably had some place in mind, and maybe that's why it took so long to find his remains, was that he had some place that meant something distinctly special to him, where he wanted to spend his final time, on this earth, so to speak. And so maybe that place was very difficult to find. And it would not be, if someone is in mental anguish like that, it could very well be that that's where they went. It's very strange. There's a human nature thing that a lot of times when people are in great fear of their lives or distress or something, they'll almost go into like not a fetal position, but they'll hide, and we'll find that they've hid someplace because they're getting ready to die. And animals do that too. When they're wounded, that they will sometimes go someplace, and it's very difficult to find them, but they're basically hiding because they're getting ready to die. And so humans sometimes do the same thing. And so he may have went someplace, and he may have went someplace that was just simply very hard to find. And that's why it took so long to get him. And it is a human reaction. Again, pure speculation, because all we have is what you've read on the air. That's all we know,
Right,
so
exactly.
We don't have any more information.
So, Hal, I want to talk more about the search as well, because the U.S. Marshal Service, they were involved in this manhunt as well. They had deputies on the scene from both Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, working with local and federal authorities. When they were asked whether the thinking is that Card is on the move or hunkered down in the woods, a source to Fox answered, quote, "We can't pigeonhole him. We've got to just work the lead." So it seems like they did not really know where he was throughout the course of these 48 hours. And now we find out, yes, that he is dead. They know that as much. But what do you make of the search itself? I know there were hundreds of tips, hundreds of leads law enforcement got. But did you think, and kind of in your gut or in the back of your mind, that they were ever going to take him alive? They wanted to take him alive, but they're not going to get it.
If he was alive, my sense was they would find him.
17 County, I checked the
There are
area.
so many resources there with all the
10-4,
there's a lot
17.
of things the FBI can do. Let's just put it that way. And the Marshal Service is also part of the Department of Justice. The Marshal Service works closely with the FBI on these fugitive cases. That's just one of the things that they do. And there are some rather amazing capabilities they both have. And I won't get
County
into
17,
that,
did you want me to send you that Turner call?
that if he was alive, I mean, yes, he had field skills. Obviously, he had weapons knowledge, but he does not have the sort of knowledge that would allow him
Suspicious activity,
to evade
497 East Hebron Road. Caller stated his dog was barking and he heard something running around in his backyard. He wasn't sure if it was an animal or not.
Brought to bear trying to find him. And so if he was alive, I thought they would find him. But also, based on all the reports and all the discussion about mental illness
Came in at
the type
2108.
of mental illness that he had, and again, I'm not a
All the
psychologist
updated news I was sent out.
I can't claim some great insight.
Responded to the second call. I ain't going
It
to
did
steer.
seem very probable that once it was done, that he might terminate his own life. And again, we don't know if it was if this was, he took his own life. All we know is they found his remains. By the way, there's another possibility too. I've done a lot of stuff in the field, and I can tell you, if you get somebody out there and they're not that comfortable or they're overestimating, maybe they found his remains because he literally walked off a cliff in the middle of the night. That's possible too, and I can tell you, I've done some things where things will surprise you at night. And so he may think he was that good, and he may have actually done something, and the reason they found his body is because he did something tactically or whatever very wrong in the middle of the night or something.
Yeah, because we know he was an avid and experienced outdoorsman. I guess whatever that means, that he could go at great length for several days there in the wild. We know this is a very, very dense forest and wildlife there in southern Maine. Also, we know that he was an experienced firearms instructor. He knew his way around a firearm. Let's just put it that way, because there had been some reports to suggest in a personal, private capacity, he was some type of trained expert in that. The Army came out, their spokespeople said, well, he never served in that capacity while he was in the Army. He had been in the Army since 2002. He was some type of petroleum fuel specialist there. Those were his duties. And I think, of course, there was that report that he made those threats at one of these bases in Maine, at Saco there just this year. And so we're going to continue to stay with this story. We have Hal Kempfer with us as well. Hal, I want to put up some of this video. This was from earlier today. So the search for Robert Card kind of moved to this body of water today. There were law enforcement agencies out in boats, divers, looking into this body of water today, not too far from the shooting scenes themselves. I was struck by that because I would have thought we would have seen that either the night of or the day after, but today.
Well, that could be where they found his body too. He could have tried to swim and overestimated his swimming capabilities, could have got caught in current, there's just a lot of things that could have gone wrong. And I want to say a couple things. First off, share outdoorsman abilities when you're out in the field. The other thing too, and this is something in the military, but it's used in a lot of different, it's used all over the place, is there's a saying, and certainly in the special operations world, that when you're operating the field, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. In other words, two people have a much higher chance of success than one person. And if you're one person out in the field, Murphy's law of accidents will be lurking over your shoulder, and you can fall down fall off a cliff, fall down a hole, get caught in a current, get snagged on a root, whatever it is. There's just lots of things that can happen, and there's nobody else to provide you aid except yourself. So it's always good to have a buddy system. Obviously, this is a lone wolf, mass murderer. He's not going to have a buddy with him. And if he did, you'd have a conspiracy. We'd be talking about something else. But in those situations, there is a certain amount of logic in that accidents will happen. And if you're out in the wilderness, certainly in the sort of situation he's in, there's more likely to be an accident, and more likely it could be a fatal accident than there might be in other situations. Again, all speculation. We don't know. All we know is that they found a body. That's all they're saying. By the way, as far as his field skills, I know a little bit about
Dane County, I believe I'm going to be able to
command a bulk fuel company at one time.
10-4-8.
A little unusual that I did that. It was an interesting command, huge command. But I am very familiar with the training schedules and the op tempo and what bulk fuel, petroleum supply, if you will. And we train, Marines train right alongside the Army. We actually train in an Army facility. I mean, we look better doing it, and we're a lot smarter and better looking, but we train right alongside the Army. So, yeah.
Okay. Hal, we do have our picture there for our viewers joining us right now. I just want to reset here. In about 20 minutes, we're told there's going to be a press conference there in Lewiston, Maine at City Hall with officials, with the news now confirmed by Fox, but also by the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office. Robert Card, the 40-year-old suspect who carried out this mass shooting rampage Wednesday night, now dead. We don't know the nature of how he died. We don't know where he died. Hopefully, those questions will be answered in this press conference. So we have a picture inside the room where the press conference is going to happen. I believe this is also a live picture as well. You can see this is in Lisbon. Okay, so Lisbon, not too far from Lewiston, from Bowdoin as well. It looks like some of our Fox reporters are also on the scene there. We're going to step away from that shot as well. And so this manhunt is now over. And so I'll be looking to hear so many of these particulars and details when officials step up to the podium there. But Hal, I would be remiss, talking about all of this. Today we also learned, well, who these 18 people were. These victims, these people who were just enjoying a Wednesday night at a bowling alley and a bar. I want to put up their images and their faces here, and I just want to pause this because you can see just what Robert Card wrought in this community. It is a tight-knit community, even though it's Maine's second largest city, and so you can see there, I believe there were 17 males, 1 female, as part of the group of fatalities.
Andrew, they're members of the community. They were just out on a Wednesday night, doing what they probably do on many Wednesday nights or weekday nights. And certainly have a variety of ages across the board, all the way down to teenager as the youngest. I think he was 14. And he was there with his father, is my understanding. Just
County 8 status check.
Horrific tragedy, and I have to tell you, we have to have obviously there is a very active discussion about guns across the board. Maine doesn't have some of the gun laws that some of the other states do, and my guess is that they're going to be
County 8 status check.
Some of the red flag laws that some of the other states have. But particularly in these cases, it's so important that if somebody is suffering from mental illness, that they get firearms away from
County
them
8 status check.
because they can pose a threat to themselves and others.
Hey, County, I'm all set.
It was interesting.
I spoke with the homeowners here. It was them. They were walking their dog with a flashlight.
They know
I'll be
someone
10-8.
who has a relative
10-4-8.
that has mental illness, and they were personally afraid of taking away this person's gun collection because they're afraid that it might cause some anger and frustration. And that's one of those things, like, we have some things we have to address across our society, that you have to overcome that. Yeah, you're going to make them upset, but there's a reason why, and the reason why is you're trying to avoid what we just saw on the screen.
All right, Hal Kempfer is with us now. Hal, thanks for being with us. We're just going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to stay with this story. We're going to be bringing in more voices into the conversation here, including someone you know well, someone you've worked with before, Randy Sutton. So he's going to be joining us after the break. Just to go into and add another element, add another voice as we await this press conference that we're told is going to take place there at 10 p.m. Eastern, and hopefully law enforcement will divulge more details into how they found this suspect, Robert Card, dead. We'll see everyone in 2 minutes. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We want to thank you for being with us as we continue to follow this breaking news there out of Lewiston, Maine. We are learning now, and it has been confirmed, that the 40-year-old suspect, Robert Card, has been found dead. Remember, he walked into that bowling alley and bar on Wednesday night and started shooting, killing 18 people, injuring 13 more. We do have this live vantage point because, like I said, there's going to be a press conference very, very soon here, probably in about 12 minutes or so, and hopefully we'll get more details about what exactly transpired, how Robert Card was found deceased, where he was found deceased, and so we're going to continue talking about this with none other than Hal Kempfer as well. So Hal, we're just going to keep this up here. And so
approximately 30 seconds
us right now. What questions do you have, and what do you hope law enforcement will answer?
Well, I would hope they would explain the circumstances wherein they found, his body, his remains. What right now law enforcement has a couple of missions, but one is public safety, but also they're dealing with a community that's been traumatized. And, there's a lot of questions out there as to what happened, and people want answers. And so they're going to probably share as much as they can share. They're probably even with this, there's some sort of active investigation going on to still, find out more details about what happened, to figure out anything else that could be out there. So they're trying to figure that out. But with that, they're also trying to, bring some closure, if you will, to the community, to Lewiston.
Yeah, and of course, we have this vantage point there inside Lewiston City Hall at the moment. And so I would be surprised as well if we're going to see, you know, Senators Collins and King. Also, will we see Governor Janet Mills as well? I mean, Hal, could you talk to, you were talking about this before break. Do you think we'll learn more details about, you know, how he got these weapons, the provenance of the weapons, if they were legally or illegally obtained? We haven't really heard that yet. That's something I'm always waiting for to hear in the wake, unfortunately, of these mass shootings. And so you have to kind of, I'm putting the pieces together, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but if he was very experienced with firearms, maybe you can make the leap that he had many legally obtained weapons.
If you're a firearms instructor, and you know, it wasn't, he wasn't doing that in the military. All right, I don't know. He could have been a primary marksmanship instructor for annual qualification or something like that, but that's very different than being a quote firearms instructor. So if he was, he had access to firearms, but he also probably owned a number of firearms. That's pretty normal when you're doing that, certainly in a professional capacity, that you would have a number of firearms. And I was it was kind of interesting when I saw that he was, you know, carrying that assault rifle with the scope, and of course the how he'd rigged up the magazines and everything else. That kind of got my attention. But one thing I'm sure a lot of people, when they heard he was military, probably thought was, oh, he must have got the weapon from the base or got it from the military. I would say that, and hopefully they'll put, if there is any thought about that, and there's been nothing out there said about that, I hope they put that to bed. I will say that having signed for, or having been accountable for hundreds and hundreds of those weapons, and you know, with armories all over the place, that there's a lot of procedures that are in place to prevent anyone from walking away with those weapons. It's in fact, that's probably the least likely place that he would ever get access to a weapon like that.
Okay.
That he could take and use for something, you know, as horrific as just what happened. So we'll find out more about that, find out where he got the weapons, find out where he got the ammunition, find out a lot of things, find out what his command did. That's what I'm kind of curious.
Okay.
Is what did the command do about this?
Hal, we want to welcome to the conversation right now Lieutenant Randy Sutton, our friend as well, who's been helping us make sense of this horrible tragedy and the investigation that has unfolded henceforth. Randy, thanks for being with us. I know you're traveling. I know you're busy. So let's just start from the beginning. The suspect has been found deceased. Your first thoughts, your reaction here?
Not surprised. I've been expecting this.
19 County, was that for me? This is Sebastian.
I had an interview a little earlier today, and the way I replied to it was, he's either really, really tricky or really, really dead. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad it actually was the second choice and not the first, because it could have ended much differently with the loss of much more life. So he took the way out that was not unexpected. Many of these people that are that commit, you know, absolutely repulsive acts like this wind up either a suicide or a suicide by cops. So this is not surprising. I know that I've been in contact with a number of personnel on the ground during the search, and they also felt that this was not a surprising outcome.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, we're going to hear from officials there, and we'll see if they do confirm that. There's some murmurings out there, so we'll wait for them to confirm about the nature, about how he died. But to your point, Randy, I want to get your thoughts. Were you surprised, and I asked Hal Kempfer this, were you surprised this lasted 48 hours? You had seen really the large presence and a lot of activity outside his last known address this very time last night. Then you were seeing a huge presence in this body of water today, some hiking trails, some paths in and around Lewiston and southern Maine and the environs there. Did you get the sense police knew where to look? Yes, they were getting so many tips and leads in, but did you get the sense they had a grasp on this?
Well, I think that the answer to your question is no. I don't think they had a grasp on this.
Okay.
County Sebatis 19.
They were looking in a lot. There were so many different areas they were looking at because there were so many false leads here. You know, there was leads of the homes that he had access to. There are the leads with finding the car where they did, and knowing that he had access to boats, they didn't have a strong sense of direction about this, and that's not surprising. There's no reason why they should have. Now, I'm interested in visualizing where his body was discovered in relation to his to the vehicle that he abandoned. That will be an interesting tell there, because if it was within very close proximity to the vehicle, then the question is, well, what kind of search was done after the vehicle was discovered? But I don't know the answer to the question, so right now it's just conjecture.
Yeah, I mean, Hal Kempfer and I were also talking before you jumped on, Randy, about if there's going to be some soul searching amongst, I don't know, law enforcement communities or entities there in Maine about, how they let this happen, because there were so many warning signs for Robert Card just this year, mere months ago. I'm talking about his mental history, the threats he made at that base there, the Saco base, and elsewhere. What happens from there, do you think? I'm not saying is anyone going to be held accountable, but do you think there's going to be a conversation or an investigation into how did he slip through the cracks here if he was known so well?
Now, you just hit it on something that is critical, and that is there are so many gaps when it comes down to mental health and law enforcement and coordination between the two. I was listening to some other coverage earlier today and yesterday about the incredibly small number of mental health professionals in the state of Maine, and then of course you have HIPAA laws.
You're coming in extremely 10-1. Can you try it again?
The mental health system is so broken. When we as a nation decided several decades ago that it was not a crime to be mentally ill, and basically the hordes of people with severe mental illness were literally just let loose on the streets to languish and to without any care, and still there's still never been an alternative.
County Sabatis 19 status check.
So we now have literally thousands and thousands of people that have severe mental
10-4 Sabatis 19, all set on checks.
The streets like zombies, and there's no mechanism in place for law enforcement to enforce anything.
Yeah.
And you take them. Listen, as a cop for 34 years, hundreds of people that I knew were absolutely out of their minds and oftentimes violent. We would take them in to a mental health facility, or a hospital, in the hopes that they would do something with them. And almost every single time, within 12 to 24 hours, the doctor signed off on him, and they were gone. They were released to the streets. So this is a national issue that's really, really never been addressed, and it should be being addressed, because it's leading to incidents like this.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to play the blame game at all here, but in the wake of these mass shootings, there are so many. I've covered so many. And you're talking to your friends, your family, everyday people, everyday Americans, viewers, and you hear about some of the lapses. And people get upset, people get angry because they hear about these mass shootings all the time. Just the latest one here, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention today is the 5-year anniversary of the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 11 Jewish worshipers there in their synagogue shot dead there, and the person who carried that all about just got sentenced as well and convicted. And so I'm not trying to compare mass shooting event to mass shooting event to mass shooting event, but these are kind of the touchstones we have to go off because they happen with such frequency, with such rapidity here in the United States. And so this just being the latest one, what was different about this one was the manhunt. Because usually in certain situations, past mass shootings, either the suspect was killed by police almost immediately or arrested on the scene. This is what makes this one so different. Would you agree, Hal?
I would agree. In fact,
19.
Randy and I could compare notes, with the Southwest. So many of these mass shootings that have taken place, and we had all these we had pre-incident indicators. It was very clear. Mental illness, sometimes tied in with a violent ideological outlook. They've said things. Their friends, their family, co-workers have been saying things for forever, and it's in the system. And of course, this is one of the things we've been working on for so long, is to create that intelligence connection where we can somehow track them. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, and Randy, you could weigh in on this. It gets tossed over to law enforcement and it becomes a call for service. And so some patrol officer or some deputy or they're going out there to do a call on someone's home or residence or whatever. They don't have all the background, they don't have all the information, and they're not trained mental health professionals. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we've had over the last several years is we have these mental health problems. We need mental health professionals to weigh in, but a lot of this stuff, the intervention piece, got tossed on the law enforcement. It overwhelms what is already an overwhelming amount of work that has to be done. And look, patrol officers can do amazing things, but they can't do everything. And to throw that onto a thing when they need additional help, and I'm sure Randy knows Dr. Tony Believes, and who with LA Sheriff's, LAPD with LA County, one of the top mental health professionals that works in this area. We've talked about this for a very long time, which is the need to expand this, to provide more tools and to provide more resources so that when officers do go in, they have somebody else going in with them to provide them some assistance in these areas, because frankly, we need to get these people away from the firearms, away from things where they can do harm to others.
Yeah.
And of course, prevent to do harm for themselves. But when you look at this one, obviously my biggest concern was what he did to others. I'm a little less concerned about what he did to himself.
Right. And speaking of that, before we just get into more of this, let's just reset here. I'm on the line here with Hal Kempfer, our friend, and Lieutenant Randy Sutton, our friend, experts in their fields who have guided us through this horrible, horrible story this week. Help us make sense of it. Help us make sense of the investigation. And we are waiting for a press conference to happen, any moment here. We're told at the top of the hour. But if you're just coming to us right now, the suspect in the Maine mass shooting is dead. Robert Card has been found dead. And so before we get to the press conference, looks like we got some people coming in and out.
Lewiston 102.
So, Randy, if you could briefly, I asked Hal this already, what are you going to be expecting to hear from law enforcement in just mere moments?
10.21, please.
What is essentially the breakdown and timeline of how he was found, some information on the scope of the search itself. This is probably one of the, if not one of the biggest manhunt in Maine law enforcement history. So there's going to be, and I want to point this out too, that every time a situation like this occurs, there is a huge learning curve involved, and then there will be so many discussions about what went right and what went wrong in this, and so hopefully this will become a learning experience for the law enforcement community there as well. Suddenly they have to take the limited resources that they have. They only have like a little over 1 million, I think 1.5 million people in the entire state. And so they've got a very limited number of police officers. I can tell you from information that I got that the first night when this happened, there were so few resources made available to law enforcement. They had no helicopters. They had no infrared-looking radar that would have been exceedingly beneficial. They might have found, if they had FLIR, the forward-looking infrared radar on helicopters, if they had been made available, they might have found this guy that night. And so I was a little taken aback that none of these resources were made available to the police. So, but that shows another one of those. This is going to be a learning experience, and hopefully there'll be plans made and put in place for another similar. It won't be the same, of course, but it could be a similar type situation. And law enforcement needs to learn, and we learn the hard way. We learn from situations like this where, all I know is I'm just so thankful that he chose this route instead of choosing the route suicide by cop, which inevitably would have happened had he been in a confrontation with law enforcement. So,
yeah.
But that I think that we're going to get a little bit of information on this during this press briefing now.
Yeah, and we're going to keep talking to you guys until that press conference happens. If you guys have some time, we'd love to get your reaction on the back end once the press conference ends and wraps up. But interesting, we just got this new live vantage point up. I want to put this up. This is interesting. We're being told this is outside the recycling plant where Robert Card worked. So that just came up. We wanted to take that live. Maybe that's an indication of where Robert Card's body was found. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves or speculate, but I got to wonder why we have this live picture outside a place of his former employment there. I'm not entirely sure if this is in Lewiston or Lisbon or Bowdoin there, but it's somewhere in Maine, of course. We got a live picture outside. It's a little after 10 p.m. there on a Friday night. Interesting stuff, isn't it, Hal?
County 24 status check.
Well, that would make sense. It could be someplace he's associated with it. By the way, if you work at a plant like that, you may know a lot of nooks and crannies where you could hide yourself, if you will.
18 county.
And that's a human nature thing, that when people are injured,
18, go
which
ahead.
can include mental illness,
Go ahead, 18.
sometimes they will kind of, like animals, they will crawl someplace into a space where they feel kind of closed off but safe or whatever. And he could have done something like that. That could have been, in fact, what little I know of the case is that he had some issues at work. I'd heard something that he may have been terminated. I don't know if that was true or if that was just speculation. But if that's the case, he may have chosen that, if that is where they found his body, he may have chosen that for a distinct, very, very distinct reason. By the way, I just want to touch on something, if I would, that Randy had touched on, and we talked about this Wednesday, and that's, I've done all sorts of training, counterterrorism training, obviously in Las Vegas and Nevada, and throughout California. But I go to a lot of rural states, like Montana, and I have to tell you, there are some places where we get kind of used to that if we're in a larger city or a larger metropolitan area, that we have all these resources that we can bring to bear, that we have a phenomenal amount of mutual aid with local agencies. And you get some of these rural areas, they just don't have the personnel. They don't have the resources. That's why I kind of brought that up, was when they talked about federal resources coming in, that seemed like a very logical thing for that area. And I never heard anything about it. Maybe we'll find out more, but I would not be surprised if there was some interstate mutual aid that came into a system, particularly with those, high demand, low density things like helicopters with FLIR, and a lot of other very specialized equipment, specialized units.
All right, it does look like we just got the 2-minute warning here for this press conference to begin. We can't thank Randy Sutton and Hal Kemper enough. We do want you guys to kind of wait and hear what is said in this press conference. We're going to bring you in, if you got time, on the back end. But let's take this live right now. I'm Andrew Kraft. We are about to hear from law enforcement officials, probably some elected leaders there in Maine, about the breaking news we got a little under an hour ago. That 40-year-old suspect who went on this Maine massacre has been found dead. Robert Card dead tonight after an almost 3-day manhunt. And so there you see some officials entering into the room here. We're going to keep this shot up as officials are about to provide an update. And like I said, we've been asking Randy and Hal, what's going to be said in this press conference. I have my questions about where Robert Card's body was found, in the manner in which it was found as well. Of course, deceased, but how? And then hopefully we'll maybe learn more details about his background, about his social media profiles, his mental health history, and the like. But let's just listen in right now. It's about 10 after the hour there in Lewiston, Maine on this Friday night. And I don't want to say a good resolution to this because the victims' families, it's still so raw, so tense. We showed you those 18 victims. We know who they are now. We know their names. We've seen their faces. That was in the last press conference just mere hours ago this afternoon. I want to put that up for you while we wait for these officials to step up there. And there they are. They were just enjoying a night at the bowling alley and at the bar. And they were gunned down so innocently, randomly, indiscriminately. And you can see them there, back out live there in the Lewiston City Hall at the moment. And so we were told we had the 2-minute warning. Also, I would imagine this is going to be a scene that is discussed. We just had this picture up. We were talking to Hal and Randy about it. That apparently is outside where Robert Card used to work. It's a recycling plant there in Maine. I'm not entirely sure if it's Lewiston or Lisbon or Bowdoin. Hopefully we'll get a better sense. We're going to be writing some notes about some of the updates there from the press conference. Let's take this live yet again. Remember, hundreds of law enforcement officers from local, state, and federal agencies descended on southern Maine to look for Robert Card. This very time last night, SWAT teams were outside his last known address. I believe that was in Bowdoin, Maine. I don't think he was ever in that home. Law enforcement may have suspected that he was, or may have just thought that that could have been a lead they wanted to follow up on. We do know they were executing a search warrant at that residence last night, so that's also why they were there as well. And then the search moved to some bodies of water today and other areas in the environs of Lewiston. And then, of course, at the last press conference, we know that these county and state officials, including Governor Janet Mills, lifting the shelter-in-place order for places like Lewiston, like Lisbon, like Bowdoin. No doubt the residents there have been so on edge throughout the course of the last almost 72 hours since this all unfolded. All right, so we're going to leave that up right now. We're going to let you listen in, watch the entirety of the press conference, and then we're going to react on the back end. Hopefully we do determine and find out what exactly all transpired tonight. I'll be looking for when law enforcement knew Robert Card was deceased. So remember, I was asking Hal Kempfer, they lifted the shelter-in-place order at the press conference this afternoon. That was around, 5 p.m. Eastern. So maybe they knew then. I don't want to say for sure or not. That could have been an indication. So it looks like this is a little more delayed. Let's just listen into some of the natural sound on the ground there in Lewiston in this City Hall chamber. Okay, so there you go. 2 more minutes. So as is customary in press conferences like this, I've covered a lot of them. All of these officials, they need to get their ducks in a row. They need to get their information in line. They got to be on the same page, if you will, as they announce to the press, announce to the public as well, what we've been reporting on for the last now hour and a half. Robert Card is dead. This suspect, this 40-year-old suspect, who, like I said, walked into Spare Time Recreation, that bowling alley, walked into Shemengi's Bar and Grill and started firing. And so hopefully not only will hear more or determine more about the manner in which he died, where he died, but also about his background, about how the community is holding up. Like I said, we learned who these victims were today, 18 of them. ranging in age from 76 years old to 14 years old. So yet another tragedy and another community stricken by gun violence. And of course, that's where these conversations go in the wake of this. You hear it time and time again. We have another vantage point as well, just another camera inside the room there. It's panning around as we wait for these officials there. Okay, so like I said, we're also getting some statements in from elected leaders from Maine, like Senator Susan Collins, the Republican. Also, Senator Angus King confirmed as well to some local outlets. The independent senator from Maine did confirm to some local outlets on the ground there in Maine that Robert Card was dead. But Susan Collins just put out this statement. I'm going to read it right now. She says, tonight, Mainers can breathe a collective sigh of relief thanks to the brave first responders who worked night and day to find this killer. When President Biden called me this evening to tell me the perpetrator of this heinous attack in Lewiston had been found, we both expressed our profound appreciation. All right, Janet Mills there stepping up to the podium. Let's listen.
Thank you very much for coming. Excuse me, coming here on short notice. I stand here tonight to simply report that the Maine State Police have located the body of Robert Card in Lisbon. He is dead. I've called President Biden to inform him about this news. I've informed Senator King, Senator Collins, Representative Pingree, and Representative Golden. Commissioner Sawchuk will describe the circumstances of that discovery in some detail in a few moments. But this discovery is entirely thanks to the hundreds of local, county, state, and federal law enforcement members from all over, and people from other states as well. People who searched tirelessly to arrive at this moment. And on behalf of all Maine people, I want to express my profound gratitude for their unwavering bravery and determination and fortitude, and for the leadership of Lewiston Police Chief St. Where'd he go? Right there, that guy. Lewiston Police Chief St. Pierre. Like many people, I'm breathing a sigh of relief tonight, knowing that Robert Card is no longer a threat to anyone. I know there are some people, and many people, who share that sentiment, but I also know that his death may not bring solace to many. But now is a time to heal. And with this search concluded, I know that law enforcement continues to fully investigate all the facts so we can bring what closure we can to the victims and their families. And I ask that all Maine people continue to keep those families and all of the people impacted by this tragedy in their thoughts and prayers. Lewiston is a special place. This isn't us. Lewiston is a great place. It's a close-knit community of fine people, people with a long history, a history of hard work, of persistence, of faith, of opening its big heart to people everywhere. And tonight, the city of Lewiston and the state of Maine begin to move forward on what will be a long and difficult road to healing, but we will heal together. Thank you, and again, my deepest gratitude gratitude of all the people of the state of Maine to these wonderful members of law enforcement who came from all over to help us solve this crime and put closure on this investigation. Robert Card is dead. Now I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Sawchuk.
Thank you very much, Governor. We truly do appreciate all of your support. I think it's incredibly important that the next person that speaks this evening is Lewiston's chief law enforcement champion, and that is Dave St. Pierre. Dave.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Governor, for allowing me this opportunity. Bear with me, please. I certainly did not have much time to prepare a speech here. I want to say to everybody, thank you so much. Our community can now breathe a sigh of relief, as the Governor stated, and I can't echo that enough. Our work, again, is not done here. I was very elated tonight when I got the call from Commissioner Sawchuk advising me of the revelation of what took place and that Mr. Card is deceased and no longer a threat to our community or any other community. I just don't want to forget the families that are grieving and will continue to grieve. I don't want to forget the law enforcement officials that have worked tirelessly throughout this whole event to come to a good conclusion. Our men and women of the Lewiston Police Department, of all of our surrounding agencies, we have with us Chief McGee here from Lisbon, where Mr. Card was found. This is vitally important to all of us that this conclusion came to light tonight. We're gonna grieve for the families that lost loved ones here. We're gonna continue.
Thank you very much
for
coming.
Persevere, and we become better
coming
people
here on short
for
notice.
in terms of working together. As
I stand
teams.
here
We've learned a lot from some
tonight
mistakes.
to
We've
simply
won
report
a
that
lot
the
of
Maine State Police have located the body of Robert Card
Again,
in
I wasn't
Lisbon.
really prepared for this.
He is
on
dead.
Friday night at 10:30.
I've
but
called
I'm
President
very happy
Biden
be
to
here,
inform
very
him
happy
about
to
this
say that the
news.
threat is over.
I've informed Senator King, Senator Collins, Representative Pingree, and Representative Golden. Commissioner Sawchuk will describe the circumstances of that discovery in some detail in a few moments. But this discovery is entirely thanks to the hundreds of local, county, state, and federal law enforcement members from all over, people from other states as well, people who searched tirelessly to arrive at this moment. And on behalf of all Maine people, I want to express my profound gratitude for their unwavering bravery and determination and fortitude, and for the leadership of Lewiston Police Chief.
So our reality here is that
guy.
the search has been extensive, it's been thorough, it's been nonstop since the minute we
Like
started
many
speaking with
people,
you and long before that.
I'm
So
breathing a
all
sigh
of these
of
options
relief
are on the table as we
tonight,
knew.
knowing
We
that
continue
Robert
to search
Card
locations,
is no longer
in
a
some
threat
cases
to
multiple
anyone.
times.
I know
we
there
will
are
have
some
more
people,
information
many
about
people who
exactly
share
how
that
this went
sentiment, but
down.
I also know that
We're
his
gonna have
death may
another
not
briefing
bring
tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
solace
And I
to
would
many.
please encourage you
But now
to
is the
think
time to
about
heal.
next steps from your end,
And
information
with
that
this
you
search
would find
concluded,
important.
I know that law
I will say that
enforcement
this is not going to be a long
continues to
Q&A
fully
this evening.
investigate
We wanted
so
to
we
make
can
sure
bring
that we
what
got this
closure we
information out
can
as
to
fast
the
as
victims
possible and
and
as responsible
their
as possible. And what I
families.
mean by that is
And I
that
ask
the
that
time
all Maine
between
people
the notification of the press
continue
release
to
and
keep
now
those
wasn't a lot of
families
details there. There wasn't a
and
lot of
all of
details
the
there
people
because we wanted to
impacted
talk to the
by this
victims'
tragedy
families. We wanted to
in
say
their
this is
thoughts
coming.
and prayers.
It's important that they heard that information as
Lewiston
close to
is a
first
special
as anybody
place.
else. And you know
This
who else
isn't
we
us.
called? Was the family
Lewiston
of the
is a
suspect.
great place.
And they
It's
lost
a
a loved one in
close-knit
this scenario.
community of fine
And
people,
there were
people
many of that
history,
family that was very cooperative with us throughout.
a history of
So
hard
they deserve
work,
that phone call.
of
So we had those
persistence,
conversations
of
tonight before
faith,
joining you here.
of
We also
opening
got a chance to
this big
spend
heart
some time
to people
with the brothers and
everywhere.
sisters of law enforcement and our public safety partners
tonight,
that have been so incredibly
the city of
helpful
Lewiston
over the
and the
last
state
few
of
days,
Maine
to say the least.
begin
So,
to move
one
forward
second.
on what
So
will be
right
a
here, sir.
long and difficult road to healing.
So at 7:45 this
will
evening is
heal
when Mr.
together.
Card was located. I won't give you an exact
you. And
address.
again,
it was
my
near
deepest
the
gratitude.
river along
Gratitude
Androscoggin
of all the
in
people in the
Lisbon
state of
Falls
Maine,
was the actual location. Ma'am,
to
did you
these
have a
wonderful
question?
members of law enforcement who came
Ma'am,
from
did you have
all
a question?
over to help us solve this crime.
That all remains to be
and
seen, right? So our reality is that
put
we found
closure
that body at
on this
7:45, and it's 10:25 now.
Robert Card
So
is
there
dead.
continues to be a lot of work that
Now I'm
needs to be
going to
done
turn
here
it
at
over
the
to
scene with the medical
Commissioner
examiner's office. So there's a much more follow-up to what happened. But sir, did you have a question? We truly do appreciate all of your support. I won't be able to answer either one of those questions at this point. Accomplices and things of that nature. We've had no indication of that since the very beginning. But as we've talked about before, these next steps are going to be, gives us an opportunity to do things as fast as we can in the sense that we want to provide closure and information, but also slow things down a little bit because we need to look at video evidence, we need to look at the various pieces of technology that are in play here, in hopes that that gives us some additional information around some of the things that you're going to be concerned about.
Our work
Yes,
again
ma'am?
is not done here. I was very elated tonight when I got the call from Commissioner Sawchuk advising me of the revelation of what took place and that Mr. Card is deceased and no longer a threat to our community or any other community. I just don't want to forget the families that are grieving.
Yeah, I'm happy to
will
take a look at
continue
that
to grieve.
information
I
in
don't wanna
hopes
forget
that
the
I
law
can get that
enforcement
back to you
officials
tomorrow
that
morning
have
at 10
worked
o'clock.
tirelessly
That remains to be
throughout this
seen.
whole event,
Again, we
to
have
come to a good conclusion.
attorney generals that we need to work with
Our
and
men
other
and women of the
individuals
Lewiston
that are
Police
in play
Department,
here. I'm going to
of
take a
all
couple
of our
more questions.
surrounding
Again,
agencies. We have
with the
with us,
mindset that it's 10
Chief
o'clock
McGee
tonight,
here from
and we do
Lisbon,
want to come back
where Mr.
tomorrow
Card was
morning to have this
found.
conversation. Right here.
This is vitally important to all of us that this conclusion came to light tonight. We're gonna grieve for the families that lost.
Yeah, sure.
loved
So I
ones
think
here.
that was an
We're gonna
ongoing
continue to work. We're
conversation
gonna
since the minute we actually
and
put
we
that in
become
place.
better
We
people
knew that
for
that
it
was an important decision.
terms
Certainly
of
from our
working
perspective, it
together as
made
teams. We've
complete
learned a lot
sense
from some
to put that
mistakes.
order in place immediately
won a lot of
based on the
accomplishments
violent nature and the traumatic nature
Again,
of
I
these
wasn't really
crimes.
prepared for this
And as
on a Friday night at
things
10:30,
progressed over the
but
next
I'm
few
very happy
days,
to be here and very
since
happy to
Wednesday
say
to
the threat is
now,
over.
we've had a lot of conversations with various town and city leadership, with the governor's office, with Chief St. Pierre, with business owners, with residents,
Sure, so
and we have to
our
have that
offices are being
balancing
notified
act
now
of
as
pluses
we
and
speak.
minuses.
Some
And
know,
we
obviously,
had that
sooner
initial
than others.
surge
There
with
are
those
many that are
communities,
still home,
and
with
those
their
communities
families.
made perfect sense
And
for
I'm
an
quite
order.
certain at this
And
point in
as things
time,
tended
we
to
all
slow
know
down, we
this.
didn't have any immediate
This is
threats.
something that
We
all
made
of
the
our law
decision to
enforcement,
back off that. I would also
personnel,
just want to
ours
mention this
and any
because
surrounding
a
community
fellow
has been
commissioner had asked me to
paying
do
very
this,
close attention
and I
to
could walk out of
and
here
awaiting
forgetting it.
positive
But Commissioner Camuso said that and passed along that actually that hunting restriction has been lifted as well. So the resident hunting opportunity for tomorrow is open across the state of Maine to include those 4 communities. There's a lot of phone calls that she would receive around that. But right here, ma'am. So our reality here is that the search has been extensive. It's been thorough. Yes, I can confirm that. It's an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Did you have a question, ma'am? So all of these options are on the table, as we knew. We continue to search locations, in some cases multiple times. I didn't state that we had searched that area before, exactly so we're going to have another briefing tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And I would please encourage you as we have stated in the past, we try to use information that we can confirm one way or the other. So your reporting can say something one way or the other, and that's fine. We can talk about that again tomorrow morning. But I think we're done taking questions for this evening. Thank you very much for your patience, and we will see you soon. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you. The time between the notification of the press release and now wasn't a lot of detail there. Wasn't a lot of details there because we wanted to talk to the victims' families. We wanted to say this.
All right, there you have it.
That they heard that information.
That was the
as close to first as
director of the Maine Department of Public Safety, who followed as well the Lewiston police chief, who also followed Governor Janet Mills, confirming as much that Robert Card is dead. Those were Janet Mills's quite emphatic words there, very declarative. And so you heard there that they also, before this press conference was convened, they called the family members, the victims' family members, to let them know this had been done. They also called Robert Card's family members, the suspect's family members, to know
So at 7:45
he was dead as well. I thought that was somewhat interesting. Maybe we can bring on to the conversation here. Yet again, Lieutenant Randy Sutton and Hal Kempfer, they join me now, and we're going to be diving into what was just said by all of these officials there today. And so, Randy and Hal join me now. And so I guess my impressions, you guys, not much was said. Yes, confirmation that Robert Card was found. Yes, that he was found with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. We don't know where. And that he was found, his body was found in Lisbon, about 15 minutes away from Lewiston. So that was about it to me. I was expecting a little bit more about the nature of the investigation, when they first heard, how they first heard. But it doesn't seem like, and we were kind of postulating about this before the press conference started, it doesn't seem like his body was found there. So we had thought maybe this was his former place of employment, this recycling plant. There had been some reporting out there to suggest possibly his body was found there. It doesn't seem like it. All we got was that he was found in Lisbon near the river. That was as descriptive as that individual made it. What did you make of that? Randy, you first, because, you know, at the very end, a lot of reporters were shouting questions, and they kind of almost abruptly ended it. Did you kind of notice that?
That was one of the worst pressers I've ever seen.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed from a law enforcement standpoint to have a tap dance done like that in front of, concerning one of the biggest mass shootings in America, and they basically thumbed their nose at the entire public and said, "Well, we'll let you know tomorrow." I'm kind of at a loss for words, quite honestly.
Wow.
I felt that was very unprofessional. I thought that they owed it more information to the public, and they just didn't come through. So, quite honestly, I'm very disappointed.
Okay, because Hal, that is the point. If you're calling a press conference at 10:30 p.m. Eastern on a Friday night, if you're a member of the media, if you're a journalist like me, you're expecting a lot more answers, right? I think that's where Randy and what he's getting at there. Yes, they confirmed Robert Card's body was found from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Yes, he is dead. And they took the time and they said, which I thought was, somewhat poignant, that they wanted to let the victims' family members know before they came out in front of the cameras. They also wanted to let the suspects' family members know as well before they came out in front of the cameras. To me, that seemed somewhat peculiar. Maybe that's standard. Maybe that's de rigueur. Hal, what do you make of all that? Do you agree with Randy first?
Well, I think it wasn't the best press conference I've seen in quite some time.
Right.
But I will say this. I thought it was better than what was ever going on in Maui with the fires. That was probably the worst.
Sure.
Okay. So I'll say better than Maui, not a very high bar. Okay. What I'll say is that it was interesting.
Yes,
you had everybody lined up in the back, and it was interesting. HSIs here. I'm not sure what Homeland Security Investigations really did, but I'm glad they rolled in. ATF, that didn't surprise me. They had the local chiefs were there as well. That was good. But then they had the governor come out, provide basically the gist of the information, and then the commissioner came in right after and filled in a few more things. But I thought it was kind of content light, considering how many people had basically rushed down there for that thing. It was very content light, and I'm a little confused as to why we were ever looking at the recycling plant where he worked. I'm not quite sure what tip or lead led to that setting up of a camera shot over there, which and I don't know how it's all run, but there's something that's a little off when they're telling people to set up at some place that has absolutely nothing to do with it, because there's a lot of press there, but there's not an unlimited amount of press there,
right?
And you want to make sure they're in the right place for what you want to communicate, and you want to set it up so that you get that information out there. And I have to agree, I just felt that the information was kind of sparse across the board. I thought they would have been a little bit, they said what they wanted to say, but they didn't say what everybody needed to hear. Now, on the notification stuff, I'm fine with that.
But they didn't even lead with the fact that he died from a self-apparent
That was pretty. That was weird.
Gunshot. They didn't lead with that. In the manner in which they died, a reporter had to ask that question. I mean, to me, from a reporter's standpoint, you heard all those questions being shouted as they quickly wrapped up the press conference. Yes, they're going to have another press conference tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern, but it seemed like that was a formality. We're going to confirm this on camera. We're going to go to bed. We'll see you all tomorrow.
If I may just add, that was one of those things I had to actually ask myself, did I miss that? About midway through the press conference, did I miss? And I was like, I didn't hear it. And then when it was asked, and it was the way it was answered, I was rather surprised at the way that it's almost sort of a nonchalant way that it was answered. That's something the public wants to know. That's something that everybody wants to know. And if they can't, I mean, look, if it's a scene, and Randy could probably say more about this, but if it's a confused scene and they really don't want to say anything because they're not entirely sure what happened, that's one thing. But if they're looking at it and they say, look, this is a apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, or self-inflicted, basically he took his own life with a weapon, then that's another thing. And I don't know why they didn't lead with that, because that, when you go through those first 3 points as to what happened, that's like the second point of the first 3.
Sure.
Which is, how did it happen? The third one's, the first one, he's dead. And the last one, of course, is where it took place. And I thought it was rather poorly strung out, would be the best way to put it.
But all they said was he was found in Lisbon near a river, and maybe we could get the transcript. But that was about it. Was this on a trail? And then you had that reporter ask, was this a place that they had already searched? And so they wouldn't go into that. And that was quite adamant on the reporter's part, because they had I don't know what outlet they were with, they had reporting to suggest this was a place that was already searched. So there's still a lot of questions, I guess, at the end of the day. I guess that's what we're going to come away with from this press conference. Obviously, it's very, very good news. Robert Card is dead. There's no more threat to the community. The shelter-in-place orders have been lifted. That goes for those restrictions for hunters as well. They had put some restrictions in place for hunters going forward. But I guess we'll just have to hear more tomorrow morning. But I was expecting a little more, too, especially from some of these law enforcement officers, the one from Lewiston, the chief in Lewiston specifically. Yes, you take the opportunity, you thank everyone involved, you say this is a sigh of relief for the community. But I guess everyone will be back there tomorrow morning. Final thoughts, Randy, you first.
Well, I think I pretty much summed up my thoughts. It's just I was watching this and going, when somebody can actually give some information. It was a runaround. It was a waste of everybody's time. That's what it was.
Okay. And Hal, I guess last thoughts too. I mean, what will you be now looking forward to tomorrow morning in this next press conference? What questions do you still have?
Well, I'll be looking forward to talking about the war in Israel, because we won't have to talk about this story anymore. But I will say this: you mentioned something about thanking everybody who was there, and Randy, you can weigh in on this. They didn't thank everybody who was there. That was something I expected, was to go through and thank all the participating agencies. There's a phenomenal amount of work that every agency up there did.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to point out too.
We don't know which agency found the body either.
Well, they didn't say that, but also they didn't say who found it. But the other thing is, I know there were other agencies that were involved that didn't get recognition.
Okay.
We talked about mutual aid. We talked about all these federal agencies. We talked about CBP. I saw HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, behind them. That's not the same thing as CBP. If CBP had resources, why wouldn't they put somebody from CBP up there? And I have to guess there's a bunch of other agencies that just didn't get recognition. And I'm just going to say, from my standpoint, looking at strategic communications, that's just poor form. They should have had everybody up there who every agency that contributed should have got public recognition because this was that big of a case.
What about the evidence involved that they have to kind of pore over, whether or not there's surveillance video of Robert Card in the intervening 48, 72 hours since his body was found? Do you think, elements like that will be presented tomorrow? Randy, I know I said last thoughts here. That just kind of popped up in my head here about evidence they used to locate Card. We didn't get any of that either.
Well, that's a real good question. What I tell you, what comes to my mind is somebody walking their dog found the body, and that's how this was solved. Hopefully we'll find out some real information tomorrow when they're more rested and they, can get it all together.
All right, gentlemen, we do appreciate your time, and especially on this Friday night, breaking news, as we always say, changes everything, live, raw, and unfiltered, and we might be speaking yet again this weekend if we do find more information out tomorrow from law enforcement. Gentlemen, have a good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, so we are going to, in the next couple of hours, replay the press conference for you if you may have missed it as well. That seems to be the consensus amongst our friends and guests there, Hal Kempfer and Randy Sutton, and my own. Not much information. We were expecting a little more. Yes, let's go over what we do know, what was said there in that press conference. That Robert Card died from a self-apparent inflicted gunshot wound there, and so that is what we had been hearing, but it was confirmed there. Robert Card is dead. Those were Janet Mills's words, very emphatic, very declarative. Robert Card is dead. All right, let's take a quick commercial break. Still so many top stories on this Friday night when we come back. And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. We're going to take this story up to the top of the hour. We're getting more and more reaction from individuals, elected leaders, the Attorney General about the news that Robert Card is dead. Let's first start off with what we know. Let's put up the photo of Card, and that now we know from that press conference, he died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. That's according to the Maine Safety Commissioner, Mike Sawchuck, from the Maine State Police. His body was found at 7:45 p.m. tonight, and so his body was found near the Androscoggin River in Lisbon Falls, and the commissioner said, yes, it's an apparent self-inflicted wound there. In the meantime, let's go into some of these statements that we've been getting in, especially from elected leaders. Take a look at this one. This is from Senator Susan Collins, the Republican from Maine, and she says this: "Tonight, Mainers can breathe a collective sigh of relief thanks to the brave first responders who worked night and day to find this killer. When President Biden called me this evening to tell me the perpetrator of the heinous attacks in Lewiston had been found, we both expressed our profound appreciation for the courage and determination of these brave men and women. I want to also thank Governor Mills for her steadfast leadership, the healthcare workers who cared for the victims, the city officials who have worked tirelessly, and the people of Maine who came together in the wake of this attack. To the families who lost loved ones and to those injured by this attack, I know that no words can diminish the shock, pain, and justifiable anger you feel. It is my hope that you will find solace and strength in knowing that you are in the hearts of people throughout Maine and across the nation." So that's the statement from Senator Susan Collins. Interesting that Janet Mills, the governor, said that she called President Biden, and presumably President Biden called Senators Angus King and Senators Susan Collins as well. We're also getting a statement from the Attorney General Merrick Garland. I'm going to read that out right now, and it says this: "This evening, law enforcement recovered the body of Robert Card, the suspect in the horrific mass shooting in Lewiston on Wednesday evening. I want to thank our state and local law enforcement partners, along with the FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and other federal agencies who have been working day and night to locate the shooter and keep the affected communities safe. Although we're grateful the suspect in this case no longer poses a threat, we know that nothing can bring back the lives he stole or undo the terror that he inflicted. The FBI will continue to provide victim support resources to those who have been devastated by this attack, and the entire Justice Department will provide ongoing support to our state and local law enforcement partners. As I said yesterday, no community should have to endure the mass shootings which have become routine in our country." So that was a statement from Attorney General Merrick Garland. So we also have a live picture still. I believe this is in Lisbon, Maine at the moment. I'm not entirely sure. It still looks like some streets are closed at the moment. So hopefully we'll be speaking to some of our reporters about why exactly that is. Remember, these shelter-in-place orders were lifted, but the hunting restrictions were lifted as well. So this is a scene right there in Lisbon at the moment. Army reservist Robert Card is dead. Officials said that as much, confirming our reporting after fatally shooting 18 people and wounding 13 others at both a bowling alley and a bar on Wednesday night. So in the meantime, we're going to continue to kind of collect some of these reactions in. We're going to kind of see whether or not President Biden has been briefed on this. Well, he has, we know that. Or whether or not he's going to put out a statement, I should say, confirming as much. If the White House does that, we'll make sure to bring that to you here as well on Live Now from Fox. So we're not going to be showing you some of the earlier press conferences that were held today there in Lewiston, Maine, of course. They're going to be outdated and obsolete, but we do want to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, they identified the victims today, all 18 of them, at this press conference that was held this afternoon. So we want to take the opportunity to play some of that when we come back so you can get a sense of the loss this community is feeling. 18 of their own gunned down so senselessly, ranging in age from 76 to just 14 years old. We'll see you in 2 minutes. back here. 2 Live now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks for being with us here on a very busy Friday night. We want to continue our coverage of the Maine mass shooting, and the news we got just about an hour and a half ago that the suspect who carried it out, Robert Card, is now dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. So at the top of the hour, we'll be replaying that press conference from law enforcement and elected leaders that just wrapped up mere moments ago. Before we do just that, before the break, I had said, we want to tell you and show you who some of these victims were and are, and read their names and show you their faces as well. Before we do just that, it looks like some of our affiliates down on the ground are getting reaction from locals there, both in Lewiston and Lisbon. Let's take this right now.
Just of where you're going and what you're doing around, for sure.
Yeah, it felt, I wouldn't say better, kind of confusing on what they knew for information as far as like compared to what we knew, what they knew. We felt like maybe they knew more than we did, so it was a little bit more comforting, but still very confusing.
Yeah, and that heavy police presence was staying in your area, right? You said you were hearing helicopters, seeing police officers all the time. Was that even after the shelter-in-place was lifted?
It was
not as close to Durham, I would say. We hadn't seen a lot of police presence in Durham, more helicopters, but we knew that they were still in the surrounding area. We've been watching, the flight patterns of the helicopters, so we knew that they were still around here, just weren't really sure what was going on, so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean, obviously, this was a shocking and devastating event, and this is just the beginning of that closure, right?
For sure. You see it on the news all the time, not near here, and definitely hit home on this one. I have one of my friends, Justin Karcher. No really updates right now. I haven't really heard anything, but I know he's in the ICU, so prayers to him. I know they have a GoFundMe page for him, but definitely justice for all the families and everybody, for sure. And thank you to all the agencies and everything.
Yeah, I mean, of course this isn't bringing you total relief over for your friend, but at least a tiny bit of justice, right?
Yes, for sure.
Definitely the beginning, but it's a start.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys wanted to be here for this moment tonight?
I just wanted to see everything. That definitely just a sigh of relief and a breath of fresh air for all the Mainers around, for sure.
Thank you guys so much for your time. Thanks for sharing with us and wishing your friend all the best.
Thank you.
Yeah.